Warbling in a New Direction. Chapter 2, The Sentencing. Just before curfew, Sebastian was summoned to the headmaster's office. Stepping into the hall, he noticed Nick and Jeff coming toward him. Trent and Thad were already further down the hall and were joined by Wes and David. "This cannot be good," Sebastian whispered quietly as the group caught up together. "No, not good at all. Something is going on." Nick nodded toward the main office where 6 other Warblers were wide-eyed and nervous-looking. Making their way into the room and joining their fellow Glee clubbers, each boy stopped with shocked looks on their faces. Their parents were at their school. Most wore looks of anger while others looked disappointed. Stuart Smythe stepped forward, waking up the computer with the largest screen. He hit play and the color drained from each boy's face. They watched the video until it finished, then the headmaster cleared his throat to get the teens' attention. "As of Monday morning, you 12 boys will be attending McKinley High School. I have already made the needed transfers. I must say that I am both shocked and appalled at what this video reveals. Wesley and David, while we understand that the two of you had no direct knowledge of the actions that were being taken and did not participate, both, your parents and I, feel you should suffer the same consequences as your wayward teammates." Wesley's father gave his son a cold stare. "You were trusted by your headmaster and teachers when they put you on the council. The fact that you didn't know to curtail the behavior of the group left in your care let down not just the faculty, but those in this choir, and more disappointingly, yourself." The silence filled the room as the boys began to shake their heads, a few obviously about to voice pleas or denials. Before any of them could speak, Stuart stepped in once more. "While at McKinley, each one of you is expected to continue your show choir activities. Meaning you will attend Glee Club's classes and rehearsals. We've already spoken to William Schuster, their coach, and he has promised to break you all in slowly to New Direction's way of doing things. If you all do not participate, he has been asked to email the headmaster and parents of the troublemaker and the situation will be remedied." His eyes stayed riveted to his own son. "Now, you boys need to get some sleep. You only have the weekend to pack. Your parents will be picking you up on Sunday." The headmaster dismissed the group. Kurt groaned, flopping back on his bed. What on earth had he done to warrant this sort of punishment? Really, if there was a god, he was a cruel, spiteful little bitch. Pinching the bridge of his nose, the countertenor held up his phone, going to the Glee tree texts and sent out one of his own. "Tomorrow 10 a.m. at the Hudmel house. Do not be late, I'm making pancakes. Impending Warbler invasion. Don't call, I'm explaining it all at once tomorrow morning. Kurt." Tossing the cell onto his nightstand, Kurt started counting. He'd made it all the way to 7 when the loud sound of teenaged boy feet could be heard clomping down from the 2nd story and to Kurt's fresh new basement suite. They didn't even knock. Finn, Sam and Puck sort of tumbled over one another as they fought to get down the stairs to Kurt first. "You know, I used to have fantasies that started with 3 boys rushing into my room, fighting for my attention." Sighing, Kurt pouted. "The reality is far less sexy. Too many clothes, for one." "Whoa. You did not just call the Puckosaurus unsexy." "Not cool, princess." Puck stood straighter, arms crossing over his chest defensively. "No, calling yourself Puckosaurus isn't cool. And to clarify, I didn't say anyone was unsexy, just that the reality of 3 guys rushing into my room desperate to see and speak to me falls far short of what I imagined." Grinning, Kurt curled up around Sam, who had crawled into Kurt's bed without care or invite. "Would the falling short thing be because your fantasy involved those guys being totally gay for you and wanting nothing more than to defile and destroy Finn Hudson's little brother? With all that icky boy kissing and naked time?" Sam asked with a chuckle. Finn's eyes went wide, and he covered his ears. "Dude. No sex talk about my brother. That's A, gross as heck, and B, entering serious levels of too much information." Seeing Kurt's eyes narrowing, the large teen held his hands up in a placating gesture. I don't mean the boy kisses, dude. I meant thinking of you naked and sexing it up. Groaning, Puck facepalmed and shook his head. Sometimes it really threw him just how stupid his brother really was. At least he'd get a show since his princess was going to really rip Finn a new one. Damn, he really needed to bring popcorn with him every time Finn and Kurt were in a room. What the hell, Finn? Kurt was sitting up scowling now. Sam and Puck had broken down laughing at Finn's bumbling. The quarterback's eyes wide, trying desperately to backtrack but stuttering due to a healthy and warranted fear of the diva. Shit, not like you naked is gross, but you know it is 'cause you're my brother and all? He tried to reason with the pale-skinned boy. I'm sorry. I'll stop talking now. That sounds like an excellent idea, Finn. Kurt snapped in response. Sam tugged Kurt back down, this time laying over his chest. So about why we're here, other than destroying your hot guy-on-guy fantasies. What's the whole Warbler invasion thing? Sam asked, partly trying to defuse the situation while still making Finn choke on his tongue, and mostly because he was curious about Kurt's vague text. Oh that. Kurt groaned and hid his face in the blonde's chest. Finn took up his seat in the vanity chair, while Puck tentatively climbed onto the bed with Sam and Kurt, staying against the footboard. Yeah, that. He eyed the pale teen after not being given the look and feeling more confident. Kurt had only recently allowed Puck to see the other side of him, and thus become closer to him, though not as close as Sam. The only person closer to Kurt than Sam seemed to be Blaine, just a totally different kind of closeness. Puck had been warned by Finn, then Mr. Hudmel, and finally Sam that anything regarding Kurt inside the closed doors of the Hudmel house was private and not to be shared. This was Kurt's safe place and any and all people in it were expected to keep it that way. At first Puck had no idea what the men were talking about. As he became more a part of the home, though, Kurt started letting Puck see the things no one else got to see. At home Kurt was so much better, mind-blowingly better than rest of the time Kurt. At home, Kurt wore soft cotton t-shirts and bare feet, never layers. He would walk around in old pajama pants that hung off his hips, and not care that his hair had been mussed. He ate like a real boy as well, and that had been something that shocked Puck so much, he'd lost his seconds to Kurt. A fact which Finn and Sam had never let him live down. No, Puck was pretty sure Kurt Hudmel was the best actor in the world. It was that or a split personality he could control, but Google and Wikipedia seemed to say that wasn't an option. Finn had been the first to experience Kurt uncensored, and when Sam moved in, he'd managed to meet that same version within only 2 weeks. Sam told Puck that once, Finn had been irritated for weeks because evidently it had taken Kurt 3 months to completely relax and trust Finn to see all of him. He'd even become jealous when Puck was granted access to the real Kurt within only 4 weeks in the home. Though to be fair, it had all been forced out when Puck came home early from a visit with his sister and found Sam and Kurt in the backyard wrestling and laughing. At first, he'd been about to rush out back and pull Sam off Kurt but stilled with wide eyes when Kurt had gotten up from the grass once Sam backed off. He was still teasing the slight boy and the slim-hipped teen tackled the ex-quarterback, managing to take him down. They'd continued for a few more minutes before Sam was racing into the living room, laughing with Kurt hot on his heels. They had both ended up on the floor in a tickle fight with Papa Bear Hudmel just grinning and shaking his head as a blonde football player pinned his little prince to the floor. A quick, what the frack had brought everything to a screeching halt. Literally, since Princess had pushed Sam off with a very loud screech and blush. Everything was explained to Puck, who agreed to keep things quiet so long as he could play too, and call Kurt Princess again. Bert had not been amused but let it go when Kurt had just laughed, agreeing if he got to call Puck Noah without argument. And thus, a treaty had been struck and Puck was a full-fledged Hudmel. Now Kurt and Puck were both letting their guard down more with each other and it was helping both boys considerably. Kurt had even been responsible for Puckerman staying at the house permanently. One night, Princess had followed him after another dinner with the Hudson/Hummels and discovered that Puck was sleeping in his truck because his mom had kicked him out of the house after his stint in juvie. Despite Puck's begging that he tells no one, Kurt had gone home immediately telling Carol, the only other woman he'd ever called mom in his life. The news had sent her into a fit of tears, quickly followed by protective fury. He'd been called back to the Hummel home by Bert and walked in to hear Carol reaming Puck's mother out via telephone. He'd smiled and started crying when Bert sat him down and started listing house rules. He, Finn, and Sam each had a room upstairs, and Kurt had once again gotten a basement bedroom with a walk-in closet and personal bathroom. The guys, including Bert, had gotten a complete French toast breakfast with real bacon the morning the basement had been officially completed. Tugging Kurt's feet into his lap, Puck began sliding off the ankle boots and socks Kurt had worn. He took the lotion Sam passed him from the table next to the bed. One that Kurt had established quickly he would never use for that because it was a specialty cream for feet and cost $35 a pop. He started rubbing Kurt's feet because they all knew the diva was easier to make talk when being spoiled. "So, warblers are invading?" Puck asked after a few minutes when Kurt had started purring. Another thing that had shocked the running back. Right, I'm just there." He sighed, relaxing more into Sam and not noticing the snickering Sam and Finn were doing. Nikki and Jeff called. "Warblers are transferring to McKinley. Parents punishing them." "Hey. Don't stop. Noah." He pouted then blinked. "Oh. You cheaters." He kicked Puck in the thigh. Hard. "Seriously? Nif's gonna be in school with us? That's awesome, dude." He winced when he was kicked again. "Sorry. Princess, not dude." Rubbing the bruise already forming on his thigh. "Not just Nif. All the warblers. Wes, David. Thad, Trent." Giving a frustrated growl, he hissed. "Sebastian, that smirky little meerkat-faced boy slut." Finn's mouth dropped open in shock. "Whoa. Kurt, I don't think I've ever heard you, use language like that before." Sam had his face hidden in Kurt's neck, but his shoulders were shaking as Kurt responded to his brother. "That is because you've never been around when I'm having sex." Finn turned purple as Sam finally threw his head back, laughing so hard his stomach hurt. Puck shook his head, snickering. "Oh my God. If he brings this out in you, Smythe the criminal chipmunk is welcome at school, Elphababe." Kurt just grinned and rolled his eyes while Finn groaned. "Please stop that already. Do you know what I'm dealing with because of you three?" Finn's whine was desperate. After Kurt and Rachel had dealt with some things, they'd become closer but were still musical rivals as often as they were duet partners. Puck had given Kurt a bootleg version of Wicked, which he and Rachel had forced the three boys to sit through. All said and done, Sam and Puck decided that Kurt was definitely more Elphaba than Rachel. After furious arguing, Puck agreed to let Rachel be Elphaba only to start calling Kurt Elphababe, sending Rachel into an even greater tizzy. Oh frack. How is Rachel going to react to finding out tomorrow? Sam whispered as everyone from the bed looked at Finn. Each boy was wearing the same look, sympathetic but obviously grateful one of them wouldn't be dealing with her. Finn just whimpered. Sam was the one to whisper what all three were thinking but afraid to say. What about Blaine? How is he going to take the news? Bringing Blaine up tended to make Kurt pull away from the boys he shared his home with. This time was no different. Kurt pulled out of Sam's arms, sitting on the edge of the bed. He suddenly looked so very tired. I should go see him. Tell him first and talk to him. It's not like he will be here tomorrow morning. Anna is still smothering him with chicken soup and a humidifier. The woman means well, but she should really stick to engineering. Kurt had, much to Blaine's surprise, gotten on well with Mr. and Mrs. Anderson. They had been understandably standoffish at first. However, once Kurt and Bill Anderson had a 2-hour discussion about what defined a muscle car over the dinner table, all was well. Then Kurt had a drawn-out playful argument with Anna Anderson about best dressed on the red carpet, over the Oscars pre-show. It had a way of cementing Kurt's place in the Andersons' home and lives. Finn watched sadly as Kurt began to redress. Puck still frowned in irritation at the way Kurt seemed to need to hide himself from Blaine. Once he was 3 layers deep and had his ankle boots back on, he sighed. "I'll be back later." Phone and keys in hand, Kurt left knowing the other boys would leave his bedroom shortly after he left. Blaine did something to him. Puck finally spoke up. 2 pair of shocked eyes landed on the Jewish boy. "What the frack are you talking about, Puck?" Finn shook his head. "Those 2 are like the most stable, mushy couple in Lima." "No, I've got this feeling. My gut says something is not right. He can lay around here cuddled up to us in a t-shirt and jeans, but to go see his boyfriend he has to put on a button-down and sweater. Come on, dude. That isn't normal." Puckerman's brows furrowed deep in thought. Finn noticed that Sam had been entirely silent, and his eyes narrowed when he saw that the blonde was avoiding eye contact and muttering to himself. "Dude, what aren't you telling us?" Shaking his head, Sam sighed. "He made me promise not to tell." But Puck's right, Blaine has put what was left of Kurt's self-image through a shredder. He was already pretty insecure because of the bullying. They tried not to bring that up because everyone knew how guilty Finn and Puck felt for the things they had done to the male diva. This time was no different. Both teens flinched when Sam brought it up. What little he had left, Blaine kind of tore apart. "There are days when I think I see the old Kurt. Lou Jazz hot Kurt." Then Blaine stomps it back out. "The only reason I'm nice to Blaine is for Kurt," he admitted. Sam's words only served to make Noah and Finn worried. God, what the hell could he have done? "Sam, he's not hitting Kurt, right?" "No. Frack no. Promise or not, I'd kick his pint-sized ass and tell you both so you could beat the crap out of him too." Sam replied instantly. The fierce way he'd answered helped Finn relax a little. The 3 teens were in the living room watching Mallrats when Kurt got back. His hair was a little mussed, lips swollen and eyes a bit glassy. Raising a brow, Puck snorted, "Enjoying that walk of shame, princess?" "Dude." Finn looked up at Kurt and groaned instantly. Because even he could tell just what Kurt and Blaine had been up to. Lopsided smile in place, Sam shook his head. "I take it Blaine took the news very well?" "Oh yeah." Kurt purred, crawling onto the sofa and wrapping himself around Sam like some sort of oversized house cat. Leaning in, Kurt whispered, "I even got to bottom." Groaning, Sam put his forehead to Kurt's. "Filthy, dirty, tease." Those 3 words just loud and elongated enough to catch the mohawked boy's attention. "If you want to bottom for Blaine too, I can probably arrange it." He wrinkled his nose laughing, adorably relaxed, seeming almost drugged, he was so blissed out. Finn and Puck's mouths dropped open in shock. Chuffing out a laugh, Sam tipped his head back. "Yeah, not exactly what I was talking about, sweetheart." He sighed, when Kurt just nuzzled into his neck. "All right, let's put you to bed." Sam stood, simply carrying Kurt down to the basement bedroom. "You are sure they aren't screwing?" The running back looked over at his best friend. "'Cause they have the most homoerotic friendship I've ever seen off TV." Getting up, Finn turned off the TV. Kurt would never cheat, man. He and Sam just kind of click and their friendship is this weird thing. Kurt explained it once, but it made, no sense to me at all. Something about being away from his family and the need for affection. Then he said some stuff about touch starving. Like I said, he wasn't making sense.